Good afternoon and welcome to the Gentreo podcast. Gentreo is a next-generation estate planning solution that's won awards and recognition from AARP, Real Simple, U.S. News& and World Report, and more. We're on a mission to help 10 million American families protect their loved ones with easy, affordable estate planning. We started the Gentreo podcast to help debunk the myths and raise awareness for what estate planning really is and how you can use it to protect your loved ones and express your wishes. I'm your host, Jake Murphy, and today I'm sitting down with Renee Fry, founder and CEO of Gentreo, to learn more about what estate planning is and why it's important. Renee, welcome.
Thank you, Jake. Nice to be here.
So let's dive right in. Some of our listeners may be familiar with the concept of a last will and testament, or maybe a trust, but what is estate planning exactly?
So a last will and testament and trust definitely can be part of an estate plan, but an estate plan, in our view, is something a little bit broader than that. It's not just having all the documents that you need to protect who and what you love, but it's also being able to take the actions to protect everyone. And so for us, it's everything from a healthcare proxy, the will, living trust, but also it's all things like having pet powers of attorney, pet trust, and it's having an instant access button so that when emergencies happen, you can get to the healthcare proxy, your medication list, your doctor's information. It really is bringing everything together in one place so that you have a plan for the future you and your family want to have.
And I heard a statistic that less than half of Americans have estate planning documents like these. Is that true?
It is, unfortunately. And so everyone over 18 needs one. So even if you're an 18-year-old going to college, you need a healthcare proxy in case you can't make your health decisions. Someone else can make those for you. And so right now, a little less than 50% of Americans have a will, and then only 20% of Americans have a complete estate plan. So that's documents like the will, but the healthcare proxy as well, a power of attorney if you need one. So the numbers are really drastic. And what people don't know is that if you don't have an estate plan, you lose anywhere from 3 to 8 or even 10% of the estate's value to courts and lawyers and folks like that. So if you want people to be able to inherit all that you've worked for, you really have to have your estate plan up to date and somewhere where people can find it as well.
How often do people need to be updating these documents?
Some of that's dictated by laws or how organizations use documents. So healthcare proxies and powers of attorneys, those need to be updated about every 2 years because the organization receiving that document, like a hospital or a bank for a power of attorney, wants to make sure that that's up to date, that they aren't going to be responsible for you not having a document that is signed by someone who's living, that it's one that you approve and you haven't changed any of your decisions in relation to that document. Wills might be a little bit more, you might get a little more time on those because that might change if you move to a different state, then immediately triggers a need for a change typically. Or if you have assets, so maybe you had a prize car that you wanted to leave someone, but then you decided to sell that car. So now you want to update that because you no longer have that car. Or maybe you're buying 3 new cars and you want to make sure that those cars get into your will. So those type of things are the triggers for updating your estate plan.
It seems like it's important to have all of these documents. So why do you think it is that most Americans just don't have a full estate plan?
2 reasons. One, I think people always think there's tomorrow. They'll get to it tomorrow. And in the past, they didn't want to pay like my parents paid $10,000 to do estate planning. So people really didn't have the resources available to them. And so I always thought I can wait till tomorrow because they didn't want to put that type of money out. And this is where Gentreo cures that by only being $100 if you come direct to our site, and then $50 a year after that to be able to update any of your documents and save them. So that's how we took care of that first one. And the second one, I think sometimes people are afraid. They don't want to think about death or scary things. But the one thing we can tell people is that if you can do your paperwork and your estate plan and put everything together while you're healthy, it only takes half an hour. It's really easy to do. But when things happen, and unfortunately things are going to happen, then it's just in a time when people are sad, they're confused, and they can be taken advantage of. And so we tell people, while you're healthy, you're happy, click the buttons, make your decisions. And this is something that your family and you are going to be really happy that you did today and then in the future as well.
So it sounds like it can be a tough conversation to have, but the alternative is not someplace you want to be. It really is important to get it done now.
Yeah. Oh, it definitely is. And it's something too where from personal experience, I can tell you that it's critical having those documents. My dad, unfortunately, had Alzheimer's, and along the way, he had 7 strokes. And so each time it was so scary, but my mom needed his healthcare proxy, needed his medication list, needed all kinds of information. And so that's why we created the Gentreo instant access button, because we learned from not just situations like hers, but from talking to other folks that when crises happen, you need to be able just to hit a button to get the information that's important to you. I would say too, is that one of the things that you want to do is that you want to make sure you're prepared for the long run, because people today are a lot like my dad, where they're not really just going to pass away and then that's it. But there's numerous events, numerous life events that you need to be able to help your family and your friends or whoever that might be, your loved ones, have the right information at the right time to be able to save them time and also a lot of money.
So it sounds like while it can be tough to have these conversations, it's better to get that peace of mind, get it done, and be prepared for the future. But I want to talk a little bit about what happens if you pass away and you don't have these documents in place. What happens if you don't have a will or a trust made?
So there's a word that if you can prevent having to learn it or live it, it's called probate. But probate is something that's going to happen to everyone. And I can tell you that if you have the proper documentation in place, like wills or trusts, things like that, you can do probate in a month or two, and it doesn't really cost you anything. You just have to submit your documents. But if you don't have your estate plan done, and our CFO here at Gentreo has lived through this, he's still trying to close his father's estate, and it's well over 3 years. And it's cost him tons of time and money trying to find documents, close things, trying to deal with family across multiple different actually countries for him, and really trying to figure out who gets what is there, where is it. And it's just a really long, confusing, arduous process that if you have proper estate planning done and you can find your documents, you can avoid all that.
So probate really does seem to be the word of the day. While the conversations can be tough, if you can avoid probate, it'll all be worthwhile.
Yeah, or else, and I think, I don't know if I mentioned it before, but 3 to 8% to more. Again, let me repeat that, it can be lost paying court and legal fees. I did say it before, but that's one thing where I wish I could share this with more people, because the folks who just say, oh, there's tomorrow, oh, I'll get to it. Yeah, they usually don't. And then this is their families who suffer. And this is one thing I want to add too, is that even if you're married or have a lifelong partner, you have to do estate planning still, because we each need individual wills, and we each need to make our own decisions and let people know what those decisions are in regard to things like healthcare proxies. So again, even if you're married, you still need an estate plan.
So there truly is nothing to be gained, only things to be lost by waiting and putting it off.
Well put. Yeah.
So we've talked about the will and the trust and what happens if you don't have those documents. But my understanding is that documents like a power of attorney or a healthcare proxy, those affect you while you're still alive. So what happens if something happens in your life and you don't have those documents in place?
Yep. So you go to court. I think a good example of this is during COVID, a lot of folks who didn't have healthcare proxies didn't have a document saying, hey, I would like a ventilator. I want people to try to keep me alive. I would like to be resuscitated. And in the past, a lot of folks did just say, hey, you can go ahead and take me off any, you can pull the plug, basically, is what people had said. But with COVID, so many people didn't have healthcare proxies, hadn't made decisions. They were waiting up to 5 days to a week to try to find time with a judge, so the judge could declare that that person would like a ventilator, or if they could remove the person from any artificial medication or artificial devices. So it's one of those things where in your life, you may need a healthcare proxy, even if you're undergoing surgery, or it's just better to have one just to let others know what your decisions are for you.
So to put it broadly, not only is it important to protect your choices for after you die, but the estate planning takes care of all of your decisions and wishes for while you're still living.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And also for pets too. Some people ask us why Gentreo does so much for pets. But if you have a pet, and for instance, that pet's with a babysitter, We have something called the pet power of attorney, but that gives people the ability to say, yes, this pet needs surgery. And yes, I can promise up to $6,000 for this pet surgery. Because today, especially with vets and others, they want to make sure they get paid. And so it's something like a pet power of attorney can protect your pet if you can't be there for them. Because there's few of us that wouldn't want surgeries for our pets, but you have to be able to grant someone the authority to ask for that surgery and to say, yep, it's going to get paid for. And so those are things that people often take for granted, but anymore, you really can't do that.
So just leaving a note on the fridge for my pet sitter won't cut it, right?
Yes, that's right.
So to put it in perspective for someone like me, I'm young, I'm unmarried, I don't have kids. Why do I need an estate plan if I feel I may not have especially large amount of assets at this moment? And again, I'm unmarried, I'm young. What does an estate plan do for me? And why is it still important for me and listeners who might be in a similar situation to me?
Healthcare proxy is number one. So you want to make sure people know your healthcare decisions. And again, hopefully you never have to use it. But if you're in a car accident or maybe get COVID, you need to make sure people understand what are your wishes or who do you want to make decisions for you, because you're actually naming someone to take care of things for you and make sure your decisions are carried out. So all of us need a healthcare proxy, young or old. That's definitely one that all of us need. And then I'm guessing, Jake, you probably do own some things, right? So this is where even if it's a cool computer, a car, something like that, those things need to go in your will. If something unfortunate happens, that people know who things go to instead of having to go to the courts to try to close things. And it just gets really hairy. So this is where, even though you don't have a family or you're not married or don't have children, you still have things that you should make sure you protect, because otherwise this is where the courts and the legal world, they'll be more than happy to help your parents try to close things, but at a cost.
And then I imagine as I progress more in life, as my career develops, as my relationships begin, and etc., it only becomes more of a necessity to have these documents and update them.
Yes, right. Because it's the more things that you own, the more relationships that you have, it becomes more complicated. And so this is where with Gentreo, we try to make sure you get the help to put the right documents in at the right time. And then one of the reasons we called Gentreo was that we want to be with people throughout their lives, but also when you're helping others as well. So for instance, it's 3 generations. So for me, we help our 75-year-old mother with a lot of things. Our dad just passed away. I also have a 10-year-old son. So it really is those 3 generations of making sure that I'm protecting and helping my mom make the right decisions for herself and giving her access to documents, but then also making sure that my son is taken care of in case anything ever happens to me. And so people always ask us, like, well, is it just the documents? And we tell people, nope, there's so much more. And this is really a relationship that we're trying to build with you across your life, because there's so many times when you're going to need us and so many times when you need to update, whether it's your documents or just even important information, because we help people save all their important information in their Gentreo digital vault, but making sure that the folks who need that information can use that information in the times when so many of us hope don't happen, but unfortunately do.
So that's a good segue into my next question, where I wanted to talk about, say someone has all of these documents created already. How can they make sure that these documents are put to use? They're the most useful and they're available if something happens. I imagine tucking them away under the mattress or into a bank vault, which I know a lot of people who do have estate plans, that's typically what they do. They'll hide it away almost somewhere secure, but inaccessible.
Very true. We get lots of notes and emails from people saying, hey, my spouse put the documents in the safe deposit box. I don't have the access to that. And then we just kind of like, oh, no, it shouldn't go there, because once you're dead, it's really hard to get into those things. So what we encourage people to do, if you do already have your documents, is take pictures, scan them, and upload them into your Gentreo vault. And then what we let you do is you pick and choose who you want to have access to those documents. So they get a free membership to Gentreo to be able just to access your vault. And the difference there is that so many of us live in different states now, different countries, time zones, whatever it might be. So when you need those documents or you need that important information, like accounts of different things, digital assets, that you can just click a few buttons and get that. And so it's easy and then it's fast because you're often trying to do things relatively quickly to make sure that you're helping. And so having all that together in one place that you can access from anywhere there's internet is a real game changer.
All right. So just to summarize, Gentreo is offering one location where you can create the documents, you can store them, and you can share them. And we're making sure that you can get started today to not put it off.
Yeah, no, that's spot on. And then we also help you share all your other important information too. We walk you through what things would you want to save, and then you get to pick and choose who you would like to share that information with, because it's so much more than just documents. It's everything from who your pet, who do you want to care for your pet, who gets your pet, to who are your doctors, who needs a healthcare proxy. So Gentreo is really about not just creating the documents, but putting them into the context of how you use them and getting them to the right people, and then at the right time as well.
And it really is worth just getting it done now.
Yep. And a big change. And the reason for Gentreo, everything's included for $100 if you come directly to the website. And the reason we do that versus some of our competitors will charge you like $700 for a trust or something is that we want to make sure that we're with you throughout your life. And so that's why it's $50 every year after. But for $100, you can come in, you can get your will, your healthcare proxy, your power of attorney, living trust, pet power of attorney, a lot more. But the idea is that really it shouldn't be something that people are priced out of, because we all need these documents. And this is where you need to be able to find these documents as well and use them. Because I can tell you from our own life experiences, when you can't find that information, you can't find those documents, it ends up being very costly.
All right. Well, Renee, my final question. I know a lot of people, a lot of our listeners they might know that this is something they need to get done, but they might be hesitant about getting started. It can be a lot to talk about. If there's one thing you could tell all of our listeners, and if you could get the message out to everyone, what would you want to tell the world about estate planning right now?
Right now is a great time to do it. And this is where we're fun at dinner parties, but we tell people, like, look, you're healthy, you're happy, go do this right now, get started. And with Gentreo, the great part is you can join and then you can do it in starts and stops too. You can take time to go back and think about something. Maybe you don't know who you want to give your baseball card collection to, or maybe you want to tell someone where you're storing your NFTs and things like that. So it's something that, as long as you get started and you get down the path of getting the documents and the information in place, you're way ahead of anyone else. And really, you're making it easier for yourself to get the care and the help you need if you need it. And then you're giving your family a lot of, you're just helping them so much, because it just gets so complicated. And that's the one thing I wish I could tell people is, like, we get such sad stories and emails from people who didn't prepare and they're losing money. They don't know who to trust. And it just would have been so much easier if their families had just taken care of things and understood that, how we started the conversation, that estate planning is for everyone. It's not just for the wealthy, it's for everyone, because we all have decisions to make about everything from our health to, if you do even own a car or something like that, we all have decisions that we need to make sure others know what we want done in regards to those decisions. And we need to make sure that people can find the documents and information to be able to help us with our decisions.
All right. Well, this was definitely very informative about estate planning and why it's important. I'm here with Renee Fry, founder and CEO of Gentreo. Renee, thank you very much.